Kingdom Come Deliverance and Pathologic2 are beautiful games pushing the limits of immersion in very different ways. They're notoriously difficult, with steep learning curves and mechanics going against a lot of what modern games condition us to expect. I'm here to tell you the struggle is well worth it and that they aren't that hard. I recommend them both more than any other games, but I've learned not to talk about them in front of people. There's a pretentiousness around PC gaming and certain titles in particular. When I talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance and Pathologic2, I feel like an English major carrying around a copy of Infinite Jest to impress people. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm no pro gamer, but part of me chose to play these games for their intellectual appeal. Not a healthy challenge for my brain, but a petty search for gamer cred. I've sunk way too much time into these games, and I'd like to share what I've learned. There's plenty of essays, guides, walkthroughs, and reviews on YouTube, but few of them will tell you how to actually enjoy the experience. I recommend you go in blind and push through them as far as you can. Overcoming unfair odds is the experience. Please don't let that intimidate you. If I can beat them, you definitely can. In Kingdom Come Deliverance, don't fight anyone until you learn the master stroke from Captain Bernard. Buy into a specific playstyle or class early on if you want the most replay value, and just do different side quests on each new playthrough. In Pathologic2, read the dialogue aloud, barter with kids, avoid conflict, and try not to save scum. I humbly suggest you make the most of these games the first couple times you play them. They both set new standards in the industry, but the games are kinda over when you get good. Pathologic2 draws the player into the game differently than the average ImSim. You're mostly managing meters, and none of the items have 3D models. There's not an animation for using stuff, there's a crunch or a gulp and it's gone. When you drop things, they turn into a bag on the ground that opens and closes like every other container. The player's reliance on the effects of these items makes them more precious than gold. This is where most of the difficulty comes from, item management. The rest of the difficulty comes from time management. Violence can mostly be avoided, but the abattoir is a brick wall waiting for you in the fourth act. All the items you need to get through the game this far are stripped from your inventory, and you are sent on a spiritual journey. For most of the game, you're rifling through trash cans and stealing from children, but knowing what to use and when turns these containers into slot machines and the player into an investment banker. Very few gaming accomplishments compared to when I finally understood how to keep Artemy fed. He's a hungry boy. The hardest part of the game might be the dogs. Not these. It's the barking. You hear dogs and cats all the time, but never see one. The children can see them though. Despite how interesting and introspective dialogue is with NPCs, they stand in one place or walk back and forth, like retail employees trying to minimize shrinkage. The game breaks the fourth wall over and over, but somehow Pathologic2 is the most immersive experience I've ever had. It's like being trapped in a big, horrific theatrical production. The set pieces are gorgeous and larger than life, even if they get a bit repetitive. The costumes fit that setting perfectly, but most of them look like they were found in a community theater basement. Even when it feels like one big fiction, the moral dilemmas you're put in will keep you scratching your head long after the game is over. Do you tell a teenage girl her dead mom is gone for good, or do you tell her her late mother's soul will never rest? If you let yourself get pulled into the story and the meta commentary, it's a trip. Both the superstitions of the townsfolk and the ritualized phenomenon of the kin are convincing, even when the game is screaming at you that it's just a game. The Odong are real. Grace can convene with the dead. The herb brides make flowers grow by caressing Mother Bodo with their steps. I'm not sure why Anna Angel is drowning mice, but the polyhedron stands. Miracles exist, and you'd be a fool not to listen to superstition. You must understand the people if you want to teach them a new way. Artemy is dark and brooding, but he's likable too, even when the whole town is out to get him. him. He's the best I've seen anti-hero done. You spend a lot of the game defiling corpses. You're only successful when you fight dirty, and the closest Artemy comes to romance is with a cold and unforgiving Inquisitor. Through dialogue choices in-game, you learn that Artemy has buried an older brother. He made it through most of med school before getting conscripted into the war, and he rode in a cattle car with death to get home. Artemy Burak has to sacrifice to save anyone. He has to triage his triumph, and more than likely he has to fail a few of the people that depend on him. Artemy has the unfortunate duty of balancing progress with tradition. His father signed him up to cure a sentient plague, save a thankless town, restore a dying culture, and oh yeah, ensure a future for 8 kids he's never met. Playing this game during the height of the pandemic might have influenced my experience, but surviving as Artemy is more empowering than most of my real-life accomplishments.
Przyszła bida mora lat, to nie ustoi żadnej chlap. Na kraj padł dziesnej smutek, do dnielo i rano utek, niech ich małżeński majsak.
Kingdom Come Deliverance is a medieval simulator. You can put perks into helping you survive serfdom. You can put perks into schmoozing nobility. You can learn how to read. Eating too much will make you sluggish. Wearing bright colors is bad for stealth. And you get to decide what kind of alcoholic you are. Every mission, every line, every perk is a reminder that Renfest requires booze to be entertaining. Everything you do pulls you further into the setting, further into the simulation. The game is so immersive that I didn't realize there's no children until I wrote this script. The difficulty mostly comes from starting the game with low stats. Every slight advantage is huge in the first couple hours, so every item you have space for is cherished. Soon though, you'll be wiping out bandit camps without much care. Once I learn how to do a master stroke and get my block skill past 10, I am unstoppable one-on-one. The game kinda feels over after that. By level 14, Henry is too strong for the side missions to have narrative weight. Like, once you become a war machine, it feels kinda weird to go back to running errands for mud-covered peasants. Fighting is incredibly fulfilling, but only when you win. Just like before, the hardest part of the game is the dogs. They smell you coming, they're fast, they stun lock you, and Henry has a really hard time hitting things below his waist. Even if you can keep your ducks in a row and jump the early hurdles, the monastery is harder than any battle. Again, all your items are stripped from your inventory and you are sent on a spiritual journey. I promise the best parts of the story come after. The plot is driven by historical events and interesting characters. These are real Christians. They're almost as afraid of the Catholic Church as they are of hell, and yet there's still room in their hearts for forgiveness. Lots of NPCs have their own desires and secrets. The characters are deep, and this extends to the player character. Henry is charming, intelligent, nimble, and tough as nails. Watching him slowly climb up the rungs of medieval society is enthralling, and you root for him. This is what a Horatio Alger story looks like when it isn't propaganda. Every fight he wins or kiss he steals is like watching your own son succeed. Each cutscene has you on the edge of your seat because Henry is just that lovable. Both Artemy and Henry feel good to play as. I love being inside these boys. Despite their difficulty, these games take place in a meritocracy. Hard work pays off, and the small victories, after being so vulnerable, make the player feel vindicated. Any advantage feels earned, and that's why it's so easy for people like me to get hooked and overplay these games. Be careful not to get stuck on the dungeon train. I've played them to death, and other people have played these games even more. They've been out for years. So why am I making a video on not one, but 2 unpopular subjects? Because I've seen them get a bad rap for their difficulty. I'm not here to say you're an unwashed savage for playing games that you like on a difficulty you prefer. I'm saying you're smarter than you think you are, and these games might awaken something new inside you. Also, their respective developers are teasing follow-up titles. Now is the time to get on the bandwagon. The Bachelor Route Ice Pick Lodge is allegedly releasing sounds like it's gonna break the mold mold with that main gameplay loop. If that's the case, I should withhold judgment, but I will say, if there is fighting or stealth mechanics, I hope there's a little more to them. I don't want them to be harder, I don't want more violence in Pathologic, but when combat comes, I hope it's engaging for the right reasons. I'm not a big fan of swimming through molasses, and Artemy handles like a boat. There's lots of theorizing about what Warhorse Studio is up to next, but I am rather excited for another installment of Kingdom Come Deliverance, and more than anything else, I just want to check in on Henry and see how he's doing. He's my boy. Another wish might be that there's a few more levels or perks later on for different playstyles. Maybe some with skill trade-offs instead of attribute trade-offs. The min-maxer in me was too timid to take a lot of these. Also, the abundance of side quests made the game feel like it was meant to happen over a longer period of time. Seasonal changes might help with immersion. Or if Sir Radzig said, hey, take some time off and go level up before the next big story arc. These are just wishes though, and honestly, I'd be happy with follow-up games of the exact same quality, but just another chapter of the story. If anything I've said has piqued your interest, please give these incredible games a try. Listen to the NPCs, learn how to have fun in a hard game, and keep an eye out for what comes next. Thank you for watching.